Lesson Planning 101, all you ever needed and wanted to know about writing lesson plans. This is a copy of the lesson plan form. This form is what you will use for all of your lesson plans. You'll need to download it from Blackboard, save it as a Word document, and use it for all of your lesson plans. The first section, this is where you add your name, not the instructor's name, but you will put your name here. It says student teacher name. You add your name in the first area. In the next section, it has lesson presentation date. If your plan is for a lab class, this is the date that you are going to implement the lesson, the day that you will give the lesson in your lab class with the children. If the plan is not to be implemented as part of a lab class, then you can leave the date blank. ECD Course. This is where you put the title of the course or the course number. You can put, for example, ECD 132, the number of the course, or write Creative Experiences, the name of the course. The time of the lesson. If this plan is for a lab class, this is the time of the day you will implement the lesson. Be specific. 9 o'clock to 9:15, not just happy time. You can put 10:15 to 11 o'clock, not working time. This lets the lab supervisor know exactly what time you are going to be implementing the lesson with the children, so that the lab supervisor knows when to come into the classroom to observe your lesson. If the plan is not going to be implemented as part of a lab class, you may leave the time part blank. Title of lesson. You can be creative here and put a fun name. Make it related to the lesson. Area of focus. For what course assignment is the plan being written? The area of focus should coincide with the requirement the plan meets. Is the plan for the sensory table? Is it a fine motor plan? Is it for nursery rhymes with props? Is it for a flannel board? If an early learning standard is chosen for the goal, it should correlate with the area of focus. For example, if you are writing a language and literacy plan, the area of focus might be a finger play. Classroom age. Indicate the classroom group or the classroom for whom the lesson is appropriate. For example, is it for 2 to 3-year-olds? Is it for 3-month-old? Is it for children in the red room? The location of the lesson. Where are you going to be implementing the lesson? The table in the art area of the classroom, the dramatic play area, in the multi-purpose room, outside. The number of children. Provide 2 numbers in this area. One number is how many children are enrolled in the classroom, and how many children will you invite to participate in your lesson at a time. For example, 15 is the number of children in the classroom, /4. 15 children are enrolled in your classroom, and 4 children at a time can come and participate in your activity at a time. Goal. The goal is the primary purpose of the lesson. It is what you expect to physically see the children doing. This goal must come word for word from the South Carolina Early Learning Standards, also called ELS. The Early Learning Standard and indicator chosen as the goal should align with the intent of the plan. For example, if you are writing a plan to teach a math skill, the goal should come from the mathematical thinking and expression domain in the ELS standards. You will always state your goal in the same format and will reference the ELS standard and indicator that was used. Think of the goal as defining what you expect children to achieve by participating in the lesson. Here's an example. Children will develop small muscle control and eye-hand coordination to manipulate objects and work with tools. And here's an example from the early learning standard that matches with that goal. Use tools that require strength and dexterity of small muscles with moderate degree of control. Another possible lesson with 1-year-olds using musical instruments might be: children show curiosity and express interest in the world around them. Show pleasure when exploring and making things happen. Clap, smile, repeat action again and again. And you can also add the goal APL-1F, and that tells exactly where you can find it in the early learning standard. Ideally, you begin the lesson planning process by determining what you want the children to learn or that goal. Then you develop the lesson around that. If you are having trouble finding a standard from the early learning standard, then you might need to rethink your lesson and then maybe determine how you can find a more meaningful early learning standard or early learning experience for children. Developmental skills. Developmental skills are specific statements of learning that children will have the opportunity to achieve by participating in the lesson. These are very important. We do not necessarily think about our lessons as cute and fun activities, but we want to think of them as relevant and authentic learning that is going to take place with the children. For each lesson plan you write, there will be 4 developmental domains that you will address. For each domain, you will write 2 skills. If you are in ECD 101, you're only required to write 1 skill for each domain, but you are encouraged to write 2 skills if possible. The skills represent what you would like to see children be able to do as a result of participating in the lesson. One of these skills, it should be cognitive. These are concepts that children will demonstrate through thought processes in which they engage. Examples might be match animal to the habitat, identify colors, sort food groups, problem solve finding a toy hidden under a blanket. You'll also write language skills. This includes receptive and/or expressive language and its literacy-based skills. Examples include listening skills, babbling in response to an adult, imitating animal sounds, singing words to a song. Another area is physical skills. This domain addresses gross and fine motor skills, or it can be a combination of both. These are going to be physical activities. Some examples include jump over a hoop, grasp a rattle, balance on one foot. Social and emotional areas. This area details how children will develop socially and emotionally as a result of participating in your activity. Examples include express positive self-esteem, demonstrate independence or self-help skills, identify feelings or emotions. Note, all the underlined words in the examples are action verbs. They can be observed, measured, and assessed for indication of whether children were successful in achieving the skills. The next section is the material list. In this section, you will provide very specific descriptions of what items or materials you will use to implement the lesson. Be specific in description and general quantity. Tell how many, what color, and provide a description of the materials. For example, you cannot just list spoons in your material, as this does not give the instructor enough information to approve your lesson. The instructor doesn't know if you mean one metal spoon, one plastic spoon for each child, or you may be intending for all the children to share one spoon. Be very specific in the material list. Here's an example list. 3 colors of tempera paint, and the colors are given here. 6 plastic paint containers, an easel, 6 easel brushes. Notice the number of brushes. Large newsprint paper. They identify one is needed for each child. 2 smocks, marker, and the reason for the marker is given here. If your lesson includes recorded music, you need to remember to include what kind of device you're going to use to play the music on. You also need to write the title of the CD and the specific song you will be using. If you're teaching or singing a song with children, include the lyrics to the song. If you're using poems, chants, or finger plays, you should include the words to those poems, chants, or finger plays. Your lyrics or words can be embedded in your procedure, or they can be included at the end of the lesson plan. Preparation before implementation. Under preparation, you can list anything that you will have to do before implementing the lesson. Will you need to make something ahead of time? Will you need to set up the environment or arrange for an item? This is where you state what you need to do prior to implementing the lesson with the children. Some examples are gather materials, including smocks, pour paint in containers, place brushes and paper at easel. Step-by-step procedure. List how you will implement the lesson in a very specific step-by-step format. All the skills and the goals should be reflected in the procedure. For example, if you say one of your skills are identifying colors, make sure that is listed in your procedure. The procedure should be specific enough that anyone should be able to pick up your plan and implement your lesson in a similar manner to the way in which you would have. For example, could another teacher or a student follow your written lesson plan and implement the lesson with children exactly as you intended? Your procedure should focus on what the children will be doing and what the teacher needs to do, so that the lesson will run smoothly. To start writing your step-by-step procedure, you first of all introduce the lesson. You introduce the lesson to spark the interest of the children. You want to make sure that they want to do your lesson. You can write something such as, the teacher will introduce the lesson by, and then you tell what you will say, or what you will do, or show, or introduce to get the children interested in coming to do your lesson. Next, you tell the steps taken to implement your lesson. How many children will come to participate? How will you distribute materials? And how will you explain the rules and what you expect the children to do with the materials? How will you guide the children through the lesson? What directions will you give? What questions will you ask the children? What will you say and do to prompt achievement of the goals and skills? How will you encourage participation? What about the management of children, and how is that going to be considered? Include any specific questions you ask children to extend their learning and prompt creativity. Then, how do you conclude the lesson? When the lesson's over, remember to include a transition to send the children on to their next lesson or routine or their next scheduled event. Once the lesson is over, and make sure all children have been invited and allowed to participate, conclude the procedure by explaining how you'll clean up the materials and the space and how you will promote the children re-engaging with the materials, if it is appropriate, in another area of the classroom. After you've written your lesson plan, be sure to review your lesson plan for grammar and spelling. You can ask your instructor for assistance when needed with your lesson plan. And always remember to submit your lesson plan on time.